2 days, I was actually in Mar-a-Lago, home to President Trump's private residence, of course, in West Palm Beach, Florida. I had an amazing, amazing event there that I was able to participate in called the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast. They're holding events around the world. They had the unique opportunity to hold one in Mar-a-Lago just a few days before President Trump's inauguration coming on January 20th. But hundreds of Christians and Jews from Israel around the world coming together, praying for Israel, praying for the hostages, praying for the incoming Trump administration. It really was an amazing event. And I just got back last night, so missed out with you yesterday, the past 2 days, because of appointments and meetings there in Mar-a-Lago. But now I'm back. And folks, I'm back at quite a time, right? Look, you know the headline right now. The hostage deal seems imminent. The hostage/ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, brokered in Qatar by officials from both the Biden and incoming Trump administrations. My first question, let's start with a question. What do you think of this deal? Good or bad? Very easy. It's in many ways, it's a no-win situation, I think, for Israel in many ways. But what's your thought on it? Is this a good thing? We'll lay out the good and bad points. Is it a bad thing, a terrible thing? What do you think? There's opinions all over the place right now, but I'd like to get your thoughts, because I like to say we've got the most educated audience on YouTube, our watchmen and women on the wall. So we have to dig into that a bit, the hostage topic and the broader ramifications. And of course, you saw the title and the thumbnail on this video, Turkey. That's really our main story today and the main topic. We talked about this actually a week ago today, last Thursday, got over 200,000 views. There is a hunger and an interest in this topic, rising tensions and escalation between Israel and Turkey, mainly over what's happening in Syria at Israel's doorstep. And now Turkey, in particular, Recept Tayyip Erdogan, the radical Islamist Muslim Brotherhood president of Turkey, is levying new threats against Israel. And again, much of this is over Syria. So, folks, in a sense, Israel traded one enemy in Syria, and I'm talking about the Iranian regime and its proxies and Assad inside Syria. Assad's gone. He's living in exile in Moscow right now. Iran's been chased out, as has Hezbollah. But nature abhors a vacuum, as they say, and the vacuum has been filled by al-Qaeda-linked jihadis. This is not good. Neither option was good, by the way. It's two sides of the same coin. The Shia jihadis led by Iran and Hezbollah, now the Sunni jihadis of the al-Qaeda ISIS stripe, with Turkey backing them. And so you trade Iran out for Turkey. Again, neither option is good. And predictably, Israel-Turkey tensions are starting to ramp up. I have a second question for you. Man, we're giving you a lot of assignments today. Number one, what do you think of the hostage deal? Easy question. We've got a very lively chat. I know there will be a million opinions on this. And number two, are these Israel-Turkey tensions prophetic? Meaning, is there a role here in Bible prophecy which demands a looming confrontation between Israel and Turkey? And not military, obviously, at this stage, but could that come down the line? We talked about this Nagel Commission, an Israeli government commission, just last week, releasing this report saying, you know what? An eventual war, they didn't say tomorrow or next week, but down the line, eventually military hostilities with Turkey are not beyond the realm of possibility. And I think that gives a lot of people pause, because number one, Turkey is a NATO member nation. And number two, it boasts the second largest military behind the United States in all of NATO. And I've spoken to former Israeli military officials, intelligence officials, who said, look, off the record, they will tell you Turkey would not be a pushover by any means. They're a formidable foe militarily, and we're all praying, obviously, it never comes to that. But back to my question, does prophecy, and I'm talking in particular about the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39, the war of Gog and Magog. If you watch this channel on a regular basis, you've probably heard about it. Funny name, I know, Gog and Magog, but very important. does that passage of the Bible in particular say it's unavoidable? Eventually, there will be a showdown between Israel and Turkey. Throwing a lot out at you right now. Hostage deal, Turkey, Israel, prophetic implications. What do you think? And I love to get our viewers' take and our subscribers' take, because you guys are pretty darn smart. And many of you are led and guided by the Holy Spirit, which makes it even better, which brings me to a little shout out here to subscribe to our channel. If you have not, this is current events, breaking news, chiefly out of Israel and the Middle East, but we hit a little bit of everything for such a time as this, but from an unapologetically biblical perspective. So be sure to subscribe. 2024 was a banner year for our channel. Over 1 million subscribers now. Hard to believe, and we thank God for it, and we thank you, our viewers. A lot's going to happen. I've said 2025 is the year of reckoning on a few levels. Iran's nuclear weapons program, first and foremost, it's the year of reckoning. This is it, folks. This is where the rubber hits the road with Iran's nuclear program. We will have a good idea this year whether Israel is going to strike those nuclear facilities and take advantage of this golden opportunity that it has right now, with Iran's proxies mostly smashed, with Iran and Syria's air defenses destroyed. Israel essentially has a clear path to those nuclear facilities in Iran. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump takes office in 4 short days, and he will restore, I should say, a maximum pressure campaign on Iran. So everything's aligning for Israel if they want to take care of that Iranian nuclear program. This is a year of reckoning. This would be the year to do it. And the other piece to this is, okay, does Iran break out? Does Iran see that and say, the only way we can hang on to this regime and retain power, maintain power, is if we go nuclear? And then everyone will leave us alone, because we'll have the nuclear, the ultimate deterrent, the nuclear deterrent will follow the North Korea model. No one's calling for a regime in North Korea lately, since he stockpiled dozens of nuclear bombs. It's coming to a head, folks. Fasten your seatbelts. This 2025 is the year of reckoning, and President Trump coming to office makes that Iranian issue front and center even more, in that either he will participate in a strike alongside Israel, he'll maybe not participate, but green light a strike and maybe provide Israel with arms. And the third wild card here is, look, he's the deal maker, right? We'll talk about that more in a second. Israel, Hamas, the hostage deal. If he's the deal maker and he knows that he's got leverage and he's not afraid to use it, that's a key point. The United States right now is the strong horse. It's the Trump effect. He's got the leverage, and he's willing to ruffle feathers and say, you know what? No, we're not going to trade words with a tin pot dictatorship like the Iranian regime. We're the big boy in the block, and we're going to exercise all the power that comes with that. So that said, is Trump able to intimidate, essentially, and leverage Iran, the Iranian regime, into accepting a bad deal for them? Imagine that. Not the debacle that Barack Obama negotiated and that Joe Biden wanted to revive, but an Iran nuclear deal which leaves the regime weakened and leaves the United States, Israel, and the Western world in a strong position. Is such a deal possible? Honestly, I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I think, I hate to say it, no one wants to see it, but let's be honest, the only thing that's going to stop Iran's nuclear drive is military action. I think everyone in their heart of hearts knows that. And we saw Iran's vice president just yesterday saying, or the other day, Javad Zarif saying, we're going to build up our capabilities once again. Yeah, we've taken some lumps over the past few months, but we're not done. We're going to maintain and revive the resistance, et cetera, et cetera. This does not seem like a regime that's gotten the memo. So they're ideologically possessed and obsessed with destroying Israel. It's their whole rationale for being. And if they stop doing that, if they change their spots, then there's no more Iranian regime. So don't expect them to change their spots suddenly. And knowing that, you can't expect them to adhere truthfully to any sort of nuclear deal that would come down the pike. Even if Donald Trump negotiates it, Iran would eventually, they'd wait it out, perhaps until after Trump leaves office. then they try to break out again. This is who they are. So I think ultimately you're going to have to see military action. I think, again, everyone knows that even a good Iran nuclear deal, even a good deal, essentially kicks the can down the road. 10 years from now, look, they're nothing if not patient. The game of chess was invented in ancient Persia, which is modern day Iran. They're master chess players, and they're some of the dirtiest players in the game. So we shall see. But the year of reckoning for that, I believe, a year of reckoning in a good way, I believe, for potential normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, a year of reckoning for the Houthis in Yemen, a year of reckoning for Syria. What will become of this new Syrian government? Will it even last? It's obviously a jihadi government. They're saying all the right things right now and playing like they're moderates, which they're anything but. Do they eventually more and more reveal their true colors and start being aggressive, not only towards their neighbors, and that includes Israel, but towards their own people? And the world should be breathing a sigh of relief, in a sense, and thanking Israel profusely, once again, for doing the world's dirty work, once again, in destroying some 80% of Syria's military capabilities. Could you imagine these al-Qaeda-linked, Turkey-backed jihadi rebels with a fleet, a naval fleet, with an air force, with chemical weapons? That was what was left over from Bashar al-Assad, and we should all be thanking Israel. We owe Israel a debt of gratitude for destroying those capabilities and ensuring that they don't fall in the hands of these al-Qaeda-linked jihadis. But I don't think Israel expects any world credit, nor sadly will it receive it. But 2025, I'd say circle it on your calendar, but guess what? We're here. It's 2025. In 4 days, Donald Trump takes office. So before we dig into Turkey more and what exactly Recept Tayyip Erdogan said, you will want to hear this. Direct threats towards the world's one and only Jewish state. Let's dig into the Hamas hostage deal quickly, because we talked about it earlier this week, and we had the parameters of the deal when I came to you live on Monday. We had the basis. We pretty much knew where this was heading. But now it's ramped up, obviously, the past 3 days, and there's some delays here. And for a few things, just to give you the update of updates, where we are right now, around 4:15 p.m. Central Time here in Texas on Thursday, the 16th. Itamar Ben-Gvir, his Otzma Yehudit party, is part of Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition in Israel. He's now saying if this hostage deal goes through, he's pulling out of the coalition. He's quitting the government. Now, it is a big deal in that it decreases Bibi's majority in the Knesset, but it doesn't collapse the government. You know how crazy Israeli politics can be. Look, Israel had five, I think, was it 4 elections in the span of 5 years or 5 in the span of 4 years? I get mixed up at this point. I've covered it extensively, but constant elections over the past few years, obviously a revolving door. Now, for the past 2 years or so, this government, it's teetered at times, but there has not been new elections since November 2022. And Netanyahu been solidly in power since then. Now Ben-Gvir is threatening to bolt the government. Again, it doesn't collapse the government, but it makes the grip on power a little tenuous. Think of the Senate. If Republicans only have a 1-seat majority, if someone leaves and flips, goes Democrat, retires, resigns, it could change everything. It's that kind of situation in the Knesset as well in Israel. I believe if Ben-Gvir's party, or the Otzma Yehudit party, left, Bibi would still have an edge of, I think, 52 to 48, I think, of a majority. There's also Bezalel Smotrich and his party threatening perhaps to bolt as well. We shall see. Could this deal collapse the government? I think it's unlikely, but in today's Middle East, expect the unexpected. Nonetheless, Ben-Gvir said he's leaving. We shall see if that actually happens. And we shall see if and when this deal actually goes through. Now, last night, it looked like a done deal. And now Israel is hesitating because, surprise, surprise, and I know this is going to come as a huge shock to all of our viewers, but Hamas is up to some last-minute shenanigans. Oh, I know you're shocked that a bloodthirsty genocidal terror group would make the deal more difficult, but Hamas is throwing out some roadblocks reportedly. We shall see. Now, this deal is supposed to, we'll get into Turkey in a second. Bear with me real quick here. This is an important update. This deal was supposed to go into effect, the hostage ceasefire deal, this Sunday, January 19th. I will actually be in Washington, D.C. For the inauguration, a very chilly Washington, D.C., by the way. I think 20 degrees on Inauguration Day, but I digress. But January 19th, deal goes into effect. And what it entails, you probably know the parameters by now. 33 hostages set to be released by Hamas from hellish, hell on earth captivity in Gaza. Some 470 days in captivity. Hard to believe. Could you imagine? 470 days in the clutches of Hamas demons, Hamas orcs in the bowels of the ground in some tunnel. You can see why there's such a desire on the part of the people of Israel to bring the hostages home, needless to say. But 33, now only 23 alive, 10 dead, sadly. So the remains of those other 10, 23 alive, the remains of the 10 who were killed returned to Israel. They can get a proper burial. In return, Israel is going to send more humanitarian aid into Gaza. And by the way, they've sent a bunch. One of the great misconceptions and frankly lies of the past 15 months that Israel's starving the people of Gaza. It's insane. It's a flat out lie. On my nightly show on TBN, Stakelbeck Tonight, we've shown you footage of the aid trucks, convoys going into Gaza delivering aid. But once a lie travels around the world, it goes pretty far. And when it comes to Israel, there are many lies. But nonetheless, more humanitarian aid. A 6-week ceasefire, meaning this phased deal. This is phase one, 33 hostages being released. During that 6-week ceasefire in Gaza, phase two will be discussed. Okay, phase one, if it all goes smoothly, we can move to phase two in a few weeks. And that would mean, I presume, the release of the remaining, I think it's 63 hostages who would be left, 33, something like 62, 63 who would be left. There's 94, I believe, 94, 96 overall still held. Again, 33 getting released. So that's phase two, if it gets to that. Another element to this, and the most important element, which is the most controversial element, which is why many on the right in Israel in particular, and not just on the right, and here in the U.S., oppose this deal. And it's quite simple. Brace yourself. In exchange for these hostages, hundreds of Hamas Palestinian prisoners will be released from Israeli jails. Now, that's a deal killer for a lot of people. And if you look at the track record, you could see why there's such concern. I bring you 2011, when Yahya Sinwar, who became the architect of the October 7th massacre, was released in a huge hostage. Well, they're prisoners and rightfully in jail. But Gilad Shalit was released in 2011. Thousands of Palestinian terrorists, including Yahya Sinwar, released in return. That obviously turned out to be disastrous. That's what's giving everyone pause. People want to see hostages come home. It's been 15 months, over 15 months of hell. And people don't see much of a way to get them back because Hamas has these hostages reportedly surrounded with suicide bombers. So if you get near them, they're going to kill the hostages and themselves. But that is a sticking point, understandably, for a lot of people. I would say a few things here. And there's no good options. I would say a few good things about why today I believe is different than, say, 2011 when Yahya Sinwar was released. Number one, Hamas has been utterly smashed. It's an organization that's really in its death throes. It's basically a ragtag guerrilla bunch. Yes, by the way, over the past week, several Israeli soldiers have been killed in Gaza. So Hamas is still lethal, but not lethal to an October 7th magnitude where they could invade southern Israel and launch thousands of rockets. That ain't happening ever again. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Number two, Israel now has excellent intelligence in Gaza and also in Judea and Samaria, which the world calls the West Bank. We call it Judea and Samaria because that's what the Bible calls it. It's a biblical heartland. Israel's got great intel there. If someone tries to return to terror They will not be long for this world. So that's number two. Uh, by the way, Hamas's entire leadership practically has been wiped out as well, including Yahya Sinwar. Then you have the Trump effect, obviously. Look, Donald Trump, I think a big reason, and well, before I get to that, let me mention too, Joe Biden is trumpeting, no pun intended, this deal as an end to fighting. That's point number three. This is not an end to fighting. This is a pause, again, a 6-week ceasefire, and it may not last 6 weeks and even get to that phase two when Hamas, if and when Hamas predictably violates the ceasefire. I don't think anyone has high hopes that this thing's going to get to a phase three without Hamas breaking it first. And this deal reserves the right for Israel to pick up where it left off. There's no permanent ceasefire, nothing like that. And Biden is very wrong. He wishes that were so, and he wished that months ago. He wished for a premature, insane ceasefire that would have left Hamas alive to fight another day. And yet, many are saying to release these prisoners will leave Hamas alive to fight another day, will replenish their ranks. I see it, but I think, again, we're in such a different place today where if there's an attempt by Hamas to revitalize and rebuild, Israel's on it. I mean, they're on top of it big time. You see how they're on top of Hezbollah during the ceasefire there in the north. And that brings me to number four, the Trump effect, which I mentioned a second ago. Look, President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have spoken about this frequently, and they're on the same page. Gaza will never again become a terror base and a terror hornet's nest. And they've both been very unequivocal, not only President Trump, but his cabinet, Marco Rubio, Mike Waltz, the incoming national security advisor, they're all saying, that those days are gone. Never again will Hamas rule the roost in Gaza. It's over. And I think that's given Bibi confidence to say, okay, I don't love this deal. Clearly, no one wants to release terrorists from jail, but he's saying, look, I trust Trump. Trump proved to be a loyal friend throughout his first term. And also, I think Bibi, quite frankly, is saying, you know what? We struggled so much. And again, you may not like this. I'm just giving you the line of thinking from an outside observer who knows Israel very well and Israeli politics very well, and the situation in the U.S. too, being based here. I think Netanyahu, I think it's pretty simple. He's saying, you know what? We struggled so much with Biden and Harris and that whole Blinken, that whole team over the past 4 years. We got Trump coming in. He's pro-Israel. He's got a very pro-Israel cabinet. He's really pushing for a deal here. Trump did not want Gaza lingering during his time in office. So Bibi's saying, let's try and work with him here. Let's see how it goes. He's got pledges from Trump, and he trusts Trump. Trump proved himself to be an honorable partner throughout his first term. So let's see what happens. Again, I don't think anyone is cheerleading over this deal and saying it's the greatest deal since sliced bread. But I think the fact that it's Donald Trump helping to engineer it and not Joe Biden means all the difference in the world, because when Joe Biden says don't, and you've heard him say this, right, over the past few years, what Mr. Biden, what do you say to Hamas about, attacking Israel or to Russia invading Ukraine? And Biden would say, don't. And they did. They ignored Biden. So there's actual teeth behind Trump's words. And when he threatened to unleash hell on Hamas repeatedly, I don't think Hamas wanted to wait around to find out what he meant by that. So they became much more amenable to a deal all of a sudden in advance of the inauguration. Again, folks, I know there's major issues here, and it ain't a perfect deal by any means, but let's see. Let's see how it plays out over the next few days. Let's see if those 33 are delivered, 23 actually alive, the remains of the other 10, and let's see what happens after that. That's all we can do, right? I think we should say a prayer of thanksgiving, in the very least, that it looks like hostages will come home, unless, again, Hamas pulls some last-second shenanigans, which is not outside the realm of possibility. Let's move on to Turkey. But I had to give you that hostage update because that's kind of the big story right now in the region, right? But the bigger story, I think, in the future, a looming story, is the emergence of Turkey as a major geopolitical and ideological rival to the state of Israel. Now, it's really been building for years. Think of the Mavi Marmara incident back in 2010 and that mess. And so really it dates back to 2002. And that shouldn't surprise you because that is when Recep Tayyip Erdogan came to power. And he's ruled Turkey with an iron fist now for nearly 23 years. He's consolidated his grip on power, and he is of the Muslim Brotherhood school of radical Islamists. He wears a suit and tie, and you'll see him at diplomatic meetings, but he's a hardcore radical Islamist ideologue. And here are his latest comments regarding Israel's very wise preemptive strikes in Syria and Israel maintaining a buffer zone in Syria to guard against jihadis that are backed by Erdogan. Erdogan said, and I quote, he said just yesterday late, Israel must, I'm just reading this straight off my phone from the Times of Israel, Israel must withdraw its forces from Syria or it will cause, quote, unfavorable outcomes for everyone. That's a threat. Unfavorable outcomes. The aggressive actions of the forces attacking Syrian territory, Israel in particular, must come to an end as soon as possible, Erdogan said. Everyone should take their hands off Syria, but not you, right? And we, Turkey, along with our Syrian brothers, Al-Qaeda, will crush the heads of Islamic State, the YPG, Kurdish faction, and other terror organizations in a short time. So Erdogan's saying, look, everyone get out of Syria except me, because we want to be the new power broker in Syria. We've got Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, HTS for short, is now the main force in Syria. That is an Al-Qaeda-linked group, folks. Make no mistake about it. And now he's acting like a great opponent of ISIS, the Islamic State, Erdogan is, after he spent years allowing ISIS fighters to transit to and from Syria through Turkey. But I digress again. But threatening Israel with consequences. Threatening Israel, again, if you don't stop striking targets in Syria and taking, very wise preemptive action to prevent any sort of jihadi attacks against Israeli soil, there will be, quote, unfavorable outcomes for everyone. And that's a threat. And Israel responded and basically said to Erdogan, go pound sand. You're a tyrant. You're the true expansionist in the Middle East. You're in Libya. You're sponsoring Hamas. You're everywhere. So again, the tensions are ratcheting up. And this is really important, folks. If you miss any of our live streams, last Thursday, that was the 9th, January 9th, we did one, we spent 30 minutes on Turkey. The massive military buildup. Erdogan now wants long-range ballistic missiles. He's now building up a pretty significant fleet. He's even made noise about nuclear weapons over the years. Now, why would he want long-range ballistic missiles? Who is his target there? And the fleet, wow, we talk about expansionist powers. He wants to project Turkish power around the world. And you might say that's crazy. Well, he ideologically wants to revive the Ottoman Empire, the glory days of the Ottoman Empire, which was led by, you guessed it, Turkey. He wants to bring that back. He wants to reestablish the caliphate, which is basically a union of all Islamic states, Islamic nations, into one entity ruled by Islamic Sharia law for one and all. And it's led by the caliph. The caliphate is led by the caliph. And Recep Tayyip Erdogan fancies himself as a modern day caliph, a new Ottoman sultan for 2025 for the modern age. So his ideology, I believe, demands confrontation with Israel. And it seems to me the Bible prophecy does too. If you look at Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, that war of Gog and Magog, again, funny name, I know, but very important. Prophecy buffs, prophecy scholars, authorities, all seem to agree that Iran and Turkey are in this, quote, latter days confederation that comes against Israel. Now, spoiler alert, they don't get very far, and the God of Israel intervenes in a major way. You'll want to go back and read Ezekiel 38 and 39. I'll just say that. But there's a lot of debate. Is Russia involved? Is Russia not involved in this latter-day confederation? People debate about that, but they don't debate that Iran, it's called by its ancient name, Persia, in that Ezekiel passage, and Turkey, Beth Togarmah, Gomer, ancient names for that region. Again, strange names, but in biblical times, those were the names for these regions. Everyone I've heard and everyone I respect says Turkey and Iran are definitely in there. We don't know about Russia, some people say. Some people say Russia's in there. Some people say Russia's not. I lean strongly towards Russia being in there. But what everyone can agree on, it seems, is Turkey and Iran, yeah, they're in there. So what you are seeing, I believe, folks, are prophetic chess pieces moving on the board. A lot of people have asked me, why can't Turkey be kicked out of NATO? It can, but that would require a unanimous vote, if I'm not mistaken, by every NATO member nation. I believe there's 32 of them now. Sweden and Finland just joined. They'd all have to vote unanimously, I believe, to eject Turkey from NATO. And if you're Turkey, I'm sorry, why would you want to leave? Turkey's in a great position. Look, Erdogan's got a foot in the east with China and Russia and Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, and a foot in the west as a NATO member nation. And I presume he's privy to very sensitive intelligence from NATO. So Erdogan's in a great position. He's straddling both, just as a landmass, Turkey does as well, as a nation state geographically. Turkey straddles east and west. Look on your maps. So he's in a great position. And unless he's ejected and unanimously voted out, I don't see Erdogan voluntarily leaving NATO. And he's sly like a fox, cunning in that regard. And on the flip side, I don't see any stomach among NATO thus far to eject him and to vote him out. He's threatened Israel repeatedly. He's harbored Hamas terrorists. He's threatened to conquer Jerusalem. He's threatened France. He's threatened Greece. He's threatened Cyprus. He's intervened in Libya, in Azerbaijan. Now he's intervening in Syria. And I haven't seen any concerted effort by NATO member nations to say, hey, knock it off, or there'll be consequences. Nothing. Now, perhaps that'll change when Donald Trump takes office. We talk about the Trump effect. I talked about it earlier, him projecting strength and not afraid to use the bully pulpit and use the leverage, which he indeed has. I think back to 2019, a great example of that vis-a-vis Turkey. Pastor Andrew Brunson, do you remember him? He was a missionary based in Turkey. He was imprisoned by the Turkish government, and President Trump got him out. I don't know what kind of leverage used against Erdogan, but Erdogan caved. He released Pastor Andrew Brunson, and you talk about from the outhouse to the penthouse, quite literally. It was a Joseph type story. A few days later, Andrew Brunson is in the Oval Office, laying hands on Donald Trump and praying for him before the eyes of the world. I mean, again, outhouse to the man's in a Turkish prison, and a few days later, he's in the Oval Office of the White House, laying hands on and praying for the most powerful man in the world. Only God. But that was one case of Trump using leverage against Erdogan, and I hope there's much more to come, because he's a very, very dangerous player to keep an eye on. Well, we covered a lot today. I know we've got a lot of varying opinions on the hostage deal and everything we're talking about. I'm looking forward to seeing the feedback and what everyone thought, because I'm sure we'll break this down tomorrow. But keep it all in prayer, folks. Pray for wisdom for Israel's leaders, for discernment, for clarity, for the Trump administration as well, and pray for those hostages. Whether you agree with this deal or not, I think all of us can certainly agree that we want safety and peace and protection for those hostages, and everyone wants them to return home as soon as possible. Let's keep them in our prayers. Until tomorrow, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments